Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Tell you what, let's get this started properly. Yeah. Hello. Don't have my camera centered too well. You can see all the cables that I normally have hidden. That's not good. But welcome to the show. My name is Chris, and I am the host of the show, which is called The Weekly Spinner Rack, because we are going to be talking about the stuff that happened in comic books this week. Lovely to see everybody here. We may even have a special guest if everything works properly. So yes, special guest Cable. We'll see. I'll just throw out a bunch of hellos. Lovely to see everybody here. We are back to the normal time. Yes, I've returned safely from Japan. Hello, sister. Lovely to have you there. Camera just wiggled. The little cradle that I have it in is very loose, so that's why it's sort of off balance. Is if I shift it over a little, I'm afraid it's just gonna fall. Did I catch that one? Yes, thank you. Welcome back, me. How was Japan? Japan was fantastic. Yeah, Chrissy and I had a great trip. Did all sorts of wonderful things. It's nice to be back too after 2.5 weeks. My cats were fairly excited to see me. Yes, they're doing well there, and yeah, it's nice to be back. They cuddled up against me. Boy, do we have some interesting comic book news, which is great because sometimes in the week just before a big comic convention, it can be tricky to get any news because a lot of publishers like to hold that for just a little bit. And we've got New York Comic Con this weekend. So, tell you what, I've got somebody that I'm going to surprise us all with. Maybe not a huge surprise. I hinted at it in the title. Get ready, sir. I'm going to add you. Look, folks, it's Kyle Higgins. How's Higgins going, of the MassiveVerse, of Power Rangers, of No One, of Radiant Black, and a million other comics these days. Lovely to see you, man.
You too. Sorry, I'm trying to orient myself to give you the best angle here.
How are you doing? You're coming to me from a hotel?
Yeah, we're at a hotel. Well, it's actually like an apartment that it's like an apartment hotel type situation in Philadelphia. So came out for my cousin's wedding over the weekend. Had a great time.
Hey!
And so my girlfriend and I are here and gonna head up to New York tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. and prep for the insanity of one of my favorite conventions every year, New York Comic Con.
It's such a spectacle, isn't it, of a convention?
Mm-hmm.
It's do you feel like things get a little busier for you every year? I feel like just in the last 2 conventions at New York, your time seems to be more and more in demand.
Yeah, it kind of goes in waves a little bit. There were years where it was definitely slower. I think I've done every New York show since 2010, except for one in 2016. But it's the show that, I actually posted about this in my newsletter on Friday. But I started my career really at New York Comic Con or just before New York Comic Con. And
really?
So, yeah. I mean, the way that I think of my career, like I'd been published by Marvel, but it was the lead up to New York in 2010, I want to say, where I went out and I had already met Mike Martz, who was the Batman Group editor at DC. DC was still in New York. It was in the building on Broadway, right across the street from the Ed Sullivan Theater and David Letterman. And so it was like, I got a solid 4 years. Like Mike brought me into the offices on that.
Your Nightwing years.
Well, this was before Nightwing, but yeah, like that in 2010, I hadn't done any work for DC yet. So I remember being out there and taking lunch with Tom Brevoort, and who else was there? There was another Marvel editor, and we all had
Ooh,
lunch. And then I also took a meeting with Mike Martz and got lunch. And then we went. He brought me into the DC offices, and so that was just like such a kind of like
that's cool.
surreal experience. Yeah, and so I think I was doing the Batman, the Night Runner backup stories at that time. I hadn't written them yet, but I
Okay.
had the job, and
Yeah.
so it was like, and then from there it turned into New 52 stuff. And so like every time I'd go out to New York, like I got the tail end of like kind of the great New York comic book experience. I felt like before DC moved in
Yeah. Yeah, I
2014.
know.
And so
It
I
doesn't
still
even
have
really
this
feel like Marvel is much of
no,
a New York company anymore, but New York
yeah,
used to. I think most people watching kind of know, like New York was the heart of comics for
yeah,
a long time because mainstream comics really ruled for a long time. Certainly from like maybe the '60s through the '90s,
yeah.
it was all about Marvel and DC. Um,
Well, Well, I
you
remember
have
in like
something?
2017, I went back after missing a year, and I was
Yeah.
there doing a lot of Power Ranger stuff, and they put me in a hotel, and I wasn't really aware of where it was initially. And I remember walking out of the hotel and looking around, and be like, "Wait, I know where I am." And I like turned a corner, and it's like, "Oh, I'm right around the corner from the old DC offices, but now they're gone."
Yeah.
And it's no longer David Letterman, it's Stephen Colbert. And it just felt like this like big
Different.
passing of the torch, very different. I still have like quite a bit of romanticism about New York and the comic book industry and like my own career. And so it's always fun when I get to go back for this show in particular. And it always draws like a ton of pros. And
Yeah.
so everyone, you
Yeah.
end up out with surprising people, and it's just a blast. So.
I would say that like the first 2 years anyway after the pandemic, New York Comic Con as well as many Comic Cons didn't have as many guests, but the lineup this year is insane. Like the people
Yeah.
that you're like sitting near and who you've got at your massive booth and stuff like that. Like you've
Mhm.
got your own booth this year.
Yeah, so I am still doing some signings in Artist Alley. I'm at, I believe it's H38, but I'm only there for an hour each morning to start the show, and then an hour at the end of the day to close the show. But besides that, we have a Black Market Narrative booth on the main show floor,
Yeah.
which it's booth number 3810. So we're across from one of the Stylin' Online booths, and like we're like around the corner from all the big comic art dealers. So like Albert
Yeah.
Moy is right there, and the John Romita art booth is right there, and everything. So
That'll
we
be
brought in
fun.
like, we haven't told anyone this, but like we brought in like all the cardboard cutout characters for the
Okay.
Massiverse. We've got like huge banners. We've got all our trade paperbacks. We're doing deals on those. We've got like these killer pins. We've got killer screen prints from Tom Whalen that are signed and numbered, limited to 100 for Rogue Sun and Radiant Black. So like we're kind of going all out, and then we've got, again, like all the creators are doing signing as well. And so we'll
Very
be
cool.
giving out Supermassive 2022 signed by everyone for free. If you come to one of the
Oh
Supermassive
wow.
signings, yeah, it should be fun.
Wow. Well, if
You're
any of
doing
you
the
guys
show,
are in
aren't
the
you?
area, what about that?
You're doing the show, aren't you?
I'm going on Saturday just as a guest with my buddy.
Oh, great, great.
I've been going to New York Comic Con every year since the beginning because
Hmm.
at the time, of course, I was also living on the East Coast, and my best friend from college lives in New York City and works
Hmm.
in New York, and we both like comics, so we've been going since year one. In fact, the first year, we underestimated how popular it was going to be. They didn't even use the full convention center at Javits at that point. They just
Yeah,
used the downstairs, um, but it was instantly sold out.
yeah,
And I had to I felt like such a schlep, but I called some of the pros that I knew, and I was like, "Can you guys sneak me in with your badges?" And so
yeah,
that's how we got in the first year. I feel like a jerk. I don't want to be that guy, but we were there. We wanted to get
yeah.
in.
Well,
Um,
are you there Friday night at all?
yeah, actually, I'll be there. I come in on Thursday. I come in on Thursday,
Okay.
but I'm only going to the convention on Saturday.
Well, hit me up if you
Yeah.
need if you do want to go before Saturday. But
Okay.
otherwise, we're doing a MassiveVerse meetup at Barcade down in Chelsea on
I saw you
24th.
just
So
post that on social media. I was going to ask about that. You
yeah,
you kind of do these things
please
a lot,
come.
like Kyle, like have like
Yeah.
fan meetups.
Hmm.
You've done one like in your like hometown near Chicago,
Hmm.
like at that pizza place.
Well, no, it's
Um,
the building that killed Radiant Black. We threw a party in it, and
for some
so
reason I
then
thought it was
we
a pizza place, but I knew that it was the building
no,
that like yeah like collapsed and everything on Nathan
yeah,
early on. And you did another one like out in LA at some point. Yeah.
yeah, we did. Oh, we had a Radiant Pink launch party.
Yes.
I feel like we did another one somewhere, maybe in San Diego. We might have done an impromptu thing in San Diego last year, but this one's going to be like we have all the like a bunch of the Italian creators are coming in. So
Oh, good.
Francesco Mana, Simone Ragazzone, Erica D'Urso, and then Geraldo Borges, who does No One, Rod Reese, who does Cowl, Brian Bucciolato will be there. Who else? Melissa Flores, and then Matt Groom and Michael Basuto are both flying in. They just got to New York from Australia. They just did a 24
Wow.
hour flight, basically. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just coming back from my Japan trip, so I'm actually
yeah. What?
severely jet lagged right now. And then
So are
I'm
you?
like working for 2 or 3 days, and then I'm going straight to like New York on Thursday.
I was gonna say like, so you're back on the West Coast right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm home.
So you
I'm home.
flew. Oh my God. So you flew home
It's
from
only like
Japan.
yeah, from Japan, I'm going east. It only took about 8 hours, a little over.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
not so bad. That's not so bad.
I
But yeah,
saw
it'll
all
be
your.
another
I saw all
five to
your.
fly to
I
New
saw
York.
all your posts.
Thanks.
You had quite an adventure. Do you?
I
I
did.
keep meaning to ask you. Are you fluent in Japanese? Do you speak
I'm
Japanese?
not fluent. I'm not fluent, but I have been studying for several years, like,
Hmm.
and my wife's a little better. So we can read slowly. We know a lot of common phrases and common words, so we can get by. I
Hmm.
would not call myself fluent. In fact, like I think I fooled a lot of Japanese people because I know just enough to sound like I know what I'm talking about, and they'd
Yeah.
answer me back pretty rapidly with a lot of stuff, and I'd have to say "wakarimasen" a lot. I don't understand. So I
Yeah.
had to say that a lot. But if it's I'm at that level where I know just enough to realize how little I know.
Yeah.
But it got us far. I rented a car and drove like way out into the mountains to stay at like an inn, and they only speak Japanese out there. So that was
Wow.
a challenge, and it was really fun. It was good. By the way, you're telling me about back when DC was in New York.
Hmm.
If you all have a quick moment for a story, it reminds me of like a slightly embarrassing nerdy thing that I did. And this would be going back to about 1999. So, kind of the days before we all had GPSs and stuff like that on our phone. And I was
Hmm.
visiting that buddy of mine from New York. We had gone to college in New Orleans, and now he lived in New York. So I went to visit him, and I was like, I want to see Marvel and DC comics, and I knew the addresses, but we didn't really know the lay of the land at all. And we got
Hmm.
up like about 40 blocks north of DC, and I'm like, 40 blocks. That doesn't sound so bad. But the north to south blocks in New York are much longer than the east to west blocks, if folks don't know. And so we're walking miles and miles and like just being like, well, I guess we're getting close. We even like we got so exhausted at one point that we just went into a Holiday Inn, went up to a random floor where they were like we kept looking at the floors until we found where they were cleaning. And as the cleaners left, we just walked into a room and laid down because we were so tired. And then we got back up about an hour later, and I find DC Comics, and we went up to the lobby where they had this amazing painting by like all sorts of artists of all their
Hmm.
famous characters, but they weren't doing any tours or anything. So it was quite a bit of effort for very little payoff.
That's most. That's most of comics, by the way. Like
Yeah.
career-wise, quite a bit of effort for very little payoff. That's.
Oh, I'm not going to push you for any like big announcements because honestly, those are just a couple days away and everything. But one
Yeah.
thing I thought I'd love to ask you, and I know I said I'd only use a little of your time tonight, but uh,
Yeah. It's all good.
this like happens this week. Radiant Black essentially doubles. You've like doubled your workload for the
Yeah.
next few months. Could you sort of explain what that
Sure.
is and what went into that decision?
So in July, God, I can't believe it's been that long. We've had some delays, unfortunately, but I think you'll understand why in a second. So in issue 24, which I believe came out in May,
Right.
Nathan and Marshall, who'd been sharing the powers of Radiant Black, those powers had been glitching out and becoming more and more unreliable throughout the course of the last arc. And in issue 24, they go back into existence. We did another Blacklight issue, and this is on really the eve of the Catalyst War starting, the giant kind of robot war that we've been teasing, and they know is coming. They go back into existence to try to find a way to fix their abilities. But when they get there and they ultimately are able to kind of like restart their robot, he explains to them that he can't fix their powers because they're not actually broken. The powers are just designed to only sync with one person for the duration of their life. They're part of existence. So what it means is that they have to choose. Only one of them can be Radiant Black, and they're going to have to decide. But
Right.
we included a QR code, and we informed readers that they were going to decide. And so for a month, we took votes on who will be Radiant Black, Nathan or Marshall. So we're kind of doing our Jason Todd fan vote.
Yep.
Issue 25, which came out like 3 days before San Diego Comic-Con, was where we were going to reveal who was to become Radiant Black. And we did do that, but we lied a little bit. And what I mean by that is Radiant Black 25, which kicks off the Catalyst War, runs through issue 30. We changed our cover approach from 3 covers, an A cover, a B cover, and a 1 in 25 incentive cover. We changed it to just 2 covers, an A and a B cover, both open to order. And those covers actually create one image, an
Right.
interlocking image. And the reason why we did that is because we also made both endings where the characters choose Nathan and the characters choose Marshall.
Right.
And then we published both endings under the A and B cover, and we didn't tell anyone that we did that.
No, that was very sneaky.
So I did give retailers a heads up. I personally emailed over 50 stores to tell them what the plan was and what the secret was. We were so secretive about it because we didn't want it to leak. But what we revealed at San Diego Comic-Con was that for the next 5 months, for the next 5 issues, both timelines are active because the secret of the Catalyst War is that it's actually an event told across timelines. So A and B diverge. So I'll do this to the camera. A and B diverge, and we actually have 2 different art teams doing each universe story, and both are integral to the event. So issue 26 was supposed to come out this week, and it's actually delayed by 1 week. The reason is I have my copies. It prints it and everything. The reason it's delayed is because we had to re-FOC the book because retailers still were not clear on the fact that they're 2 different books under the A and B cover. So we've actually relabeled the issues. So now it's going to be 26 and 26.5. So under the A cover, Marshall is Radiant Black. Under the B cover, Nathan is Radiant Black. And by the end of issue 30.5, you will learn who is going to be Radiant Black.
Love it.
If either of them survives.
Right. Who knows? But I love it. I've never seen a comic switch to double monthly. So you've got an artist on each one, but that means that you're still writing instead of 1 monthly, you're writing 2 versions.
Well, not only are we doing that, but we're also at the same time running No One, which has the True Crime Audio series every issue as well.
Right.
With Rachel Lee Cook and Patton Oswalt and Todd Stashwick and Yuri Lowenthal and this whole cast. So like we're doing, and then there's Infernal Girl Red, and there's Rogue Sun, and there's The Dead Lucky, and then there's a lot going on right now. And then there's some stuff we're announcing at New York that I think is going to be pretty big. That's all I'll say. But it's something I've been working on for like 2 years behind the scenes. Plus my jazz book, Deep Cuts, is going on. So there's like,
you know what? Just since I've got 2 seconds, I love Deep Cuts.
Oh, thank you.
I only tried it because I've liked what I saw from you, even though I like
Mhm.
jazz. But I'll be honest, at first I was like, this is just going to be kind of a dry history lesson, is what I was expecting.
Mhm.
I feel like I was taking a chance on it, but every single story has had really engaging characters with unique motivations, and it is just all related to the history of jazz.
Yeah.
It isn't like purely educational. It is character based, and I've really enjoyed that series quite a bit. Every time I've put that on, I've turned on some jazz on, like,
Yeah.
like some sort of streaming station. Every single time.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. We'll hook you up with some fun playlist stuff. I have to give two huge shout outs. The first is to well, it's to two people that I could not do any of this without, and this is setting aside Michael Sudel, who I could not do anything at all without. But Brian Buccellato on No One. So Brian writes, he co-writes everything with me, podcast and comic.
Yeah.
And then on Radiant Black for the Catalyst War, Joe Clark, who co-writes Deep Cuts, Joe has joined me to co-write the Catalyst War because it's just there's just so much. And Joe is not only one of my best friends, but one of my like longest collaborators. Joe and I grew up playing jazz bands together, and whereas I went film, TV, comics, Joe went music. And so we go as far back, not only playing in jazz bands in high school together, but like when I did my superhero film, The League, which Cowl is based on, Joe scored that whole film when we were in college, and he recorded
Right.
it with an
Right.
original, like kind of a Gil Evans, like jazz orchestra kind of group. And it's an original 60s bebop score that we did for The League and Cowl. And then when we did Cowl, we did an original in-universe jazz album called the Cowl Sessions. It's like if someone, like, like the Miles Davis, like the Jack Johnson sessions, it's kind of like that, where it's
Yeah.
like someone commissioned a big jazz album based on the real world Cowl figures. So in the chat, such cool little details and deep
Yeah.
cuts, like
Uh,
the image, especially that Blue Note style logo. Let me tell you, okay, deep cuts has had a delay as well. Ramon Perez, who's drawing issue 4 of Deep Cuts, it took Ramon a little bit longer to actually finish the issue. So we have it done now. We have all the inks in. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because that issue is called Blue Notes, and it plays
okay.
with time in quite an interesting way while exploring 1950s New York hard bop through the lens of a Charlie Parker, Clifford Brown type kind of savant who is very troubled. And we play with eras. So it's 3 eras of his life. And I do play jazz. I don't play very much anymore. Yes, I can play jazz. I was a trumpet player for about 15 years, classical and jazz.
If
So
if you guys haven't like followed, like, Kyle is I'll just say this. He's a little bit of a renaissance man. We know him as a writer, but he's a filmmaker and a musician and
mhm,
an editor, and he's made several small films
mhm.
as a director. The more you learn about him, the more you learn that, like, yeah, just because I know you like to plug your projects, but you don't toot your own horn a whole lot. I just want to inform
Well, it's
people.
because my horn's in storage. That's why. It's the.
That's it. You picked up on my little pun.
I
Um,
will say I did. Joe was nice enough. This is a stupid little quirk, but the trumpet that I've had since I was in 8th grade, the silver box Stradivarius. It's not a Stradivarius like you think of, like it's just the brand name. The third valve has always been a little mangled, and so it very much affected my playing for forever. Um, it's in some ways why I kind of stopped playing because I just could never get to the level for based on the amount of time and effort I was willing to put in college to get better beyond a certain point. I kind of just stopped after college, and so Joe actually, when we started doing deep cuts a few years ago, we've been working on this book for over 4 years. Joe actually sold me one of his old horns. That's beautiful. So I
oh,
have started playing again, and
that's great.
it's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
I don't know
Here's what
when
you
you
know.
fit
What
it in, but good.
I well, it's not a lot. That's the issue, but it is something I'm trying to get back to a little bit more. We are gonna do. I'll spill this here. We haven't told anyone this, but it's probably not going to be. Oh, Jim, fuck yeah, of
He
course, man.
says that he wants to
Jim,
talk jazz with you.
Jim, please come out Friday night for a little MassiveVerse meetup as well. I'll send you the little graphic if you don't have it. But yeah, we're gonna do an album for Deep Cuts as well.
Oh, okay.
And
I
there is
shouldn't be
talk
surprised,
that
Kyle. You do
yeah,
a lot of tie-in, like synergistic
yeah,
type projects. I've talked on this show to you guys, the viewers, a lot about like the true crime podcast element of No
mhm.
One, for instance, or when there was that cool animation crossover between Radiant Black and Cowl. Um, yeah, this is a good question. Does Kyle sleep, or is it just 24/7 projects? Yeah, I need to interrupt him because he's got so many things to talk about. He'll just keep going, and that's just
Well,
the truth.
wait till you guys hear the news this weekend.
I know. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about it next week.
Yeah.
That'll be really fun.
I
Um,
do, hold on, I do want to clarify.
yeah.
I do sleep. Sleep is the one thing I don't mess around with. Like
Okay.
I can't operate like I pulled way too many all-nighters in my 20s. Like I can't do it. So I'm like an 8 hour a night guy. Like I don't mess around with it. But yes, there's a lot. There's a lot of projects. There's a lot going on.
You know what I just want to like call out that's interesting. Um,
Mhm.
I don't think that there are tons of writers in comics that co-write. It happens. I'm not saying it
Mhm.
doesn't. And a lot, of course, I love the collaborative element of comics in the sense a
Yeah.
lot of writers are always working with the artist as like, co-storytellers. But you specifically do bring in very regularly to all
Mhm.
your projects, like a co-writer. Is that just is that just like something that you like doing or something? Or do you feel that you need to for a certain project to get like what you do it a lot more than the average person?
Yeah, it's a case by case basis, but it is a combination of both of those, and I'd throw in a third, which I can talk about a little bit here. The reason why, um, so like in the case of Catalyst War, I will say that like I I would say it's like C2E2 of last year. Um,
Mhm.
we were all there, like the big MassiveVerse crew was there because this was after we did the big party and everything. So Ryan Parrott, Melissa Flores, Matt Broom, Michael Basudel, um, Ryan Sidoti, who runs all the black market stuff with me, and we all sat down and we were having drinks. And Ryan Parrott, who I've known since college, is one of my closest friends. Ryan just like blurts out, he's like, "You need to get someone to co-write Catalyst War with you. You can't do this. You cannot do this," because he knows everything else that is going on as well. He's like, "I'm putting my foot down. Like you're going to die." So
Yeah.
everyone to a person was like, and Mike, it was like an intervention a little bit,
I
and
mean, that's your flagship series right now, and you're gonna double it. So, like
yeah.
that's good advice, in my opinion. That's good advice.
Sometimes I bring co-writers on for their experience and their voice. In the
Yeah.
case of doing the issues on Radiant Black, for example, like the Radiant
Okay.
Red origin with Cherish Chen, the Radiant Pink origin with Megan Camarina, and the Radiant Yellow origin with Lawrence Holmes. But then the other reason is for like I have a weird relationship with writing because while I have made a living as a writer pretty much solely for 12, 13 years full time, I still don't think of myself as a writer. Like I think of myself, I'm a director who writes.
No.
And so there's a weird anxiety about it for me.
Hmm.
And there's a screenwriter who I really love, John August, who has the podcast Script Notes with Craig Mazin. And I haven't listened to it in a few years, but John used to say a lot like, at a certain point, I stopped saying I had bad habits as a writer and I started saying I have habits because you come to terms with kind of who you are as a creator and a writer. And in my case, I have very much been my own bottleneck for a long time because trying
Hmm.
to do everything 100% myself, we live in an era where auteurs are celebrated, or there is the myth of the auteur. Sometimes there are very real auteurs, but A lot of
Yeah,
times it's more the
certainly
myth.
in the world of movies, there's not as many as there were, like, say, even 20 years ago, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
very few auteurs out there now.
So it's a little bit of just kind of like getting my ego out of the way, and I got over that however many years ago now, and it's just like, um, oh, that's a great question. Kyle, will Radiant Black be a bi-monthly book? How will the alternate endings read and trade? Okay, so it is bi-monthly, but it's bi-monthly on the same day. So whenever an issue comes out, there's a second issue with it,
Yeah.
and there's an A and a B cover that are going to be called, whatever that issue number is, and then point 0.5 of that issue. So the next one is 26. It'll be out next week. There's issue 26. That's our A cover, and there's 26.5. That's our B cover. They create an interlocking image. So it creates one big landscape image. That's how you know A and B. The A cover is intended to be read first. The B cover intended to be read second. But they really are part one and part two. And the way that they play off of each other is really important, because the whole point of Catalyst War is that Radiant Black is being challenged, for the fate of kind of like the new way. And that'll make more sense as issue 26 comes out, what exactly that means. The choices that Nathan and Marshall make are integral to the event. And what better way to explore and showcase the difference between these two characters
I
and
love
watching
it.
them both go through a similar challenge. And so the
How
issues
did two
really
people solve the same
accentuate.
problem? I love it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
And
love it.
I'll spoil this. Like issue 26 is very matchy. It's very kind of echoey of each other by design,
Yeah.
but then they go like
Okay.
way off the rails. Yeah.
That's great. I
Yeah.
mean, that gives you two different types of storytelling
Mhm.
type things to play with the idea of a branching timeline, like really close and really
Totally.
far. I'm looking forward to it, Kyle. I've been having fun, but I also feel a little guilty because we said it'd be like 10 minutes, and I'm keeping you from your girlfriend and stuff.
Oh,
Is
it's fine. She's drawing right now.
Oh, good.
We've got the Packers and who's playing Raiders game on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, is there anything like, does anyone have any questions while I'm here or
Oh,
anything like that?
go. All right. Like, Kyle's opening it up.
Hit
You
us.
guys,
Let's
if you
do it.
have an important question, there is a delay, so it'll probably take a few seconds for them to like
Sure.
respond and stuff. But yeah, if you guys have a question, sure, I'll highlight it. We'll see if we can get a quick answer. And then I've got like the news of the week to get to. But thank you first of all. Like, I appreciate you making yourself available,
Of
man. And
course.
I hope you have I'm pretty confident you will. I think you're gonna have a really good New York Comic Con.
I hope so. If anyone is coming to the show, you can come see us booth 3810 on the main show floor. That's where we'll have all our stuff. And if you tell me you saw us, you saw this Comic Tropes video, I'll have something special for you. How about that?
Hmm. Here's one. How different is writing No One or Radiant Black to something like Batman?
Well, no one can tell me no on No One, so that's already better. Or Radiant Black, I should say, both of them. But yeah, I'm being a little snarky there. Um, I mean, Radiant Black is quite a bit different than writing Batman stuff. No One is definitely the same wheelhouse. It's just a very heightened kind of right now version of the world. It's also set in a real city, which you would think wouldn't change things all that much, but it really does.
Oh yeah, No
That's
One
that's the
especially like
biggest thing.
really feels like that's
Yeah.
almost a character. Because you're meeting like people that work from the police to the newspaper, like sort of all the things that keep a city functioning, and
And
it makes the city feel like a character.
it's very rooted in the real world Pittsburgh, just like Radiant Black is very rooted in the real world Chicago and kind of like Northwest Indiana, like Midwest area. I think it helps, especially when you're trying to tell really contemporary superhero stories. It helps when the cities are actually the world outside your window.
That's a good one. Here's a fun one. Is there going to be a Cowl revival coming in the future? That's a pretty easy one.
There is, and yeah, we're gonna do more for
There you
sure.
go. So we'll see what comes out, maybe, in the coming days. And here's one. I mean, hey, you're known for writing stuff like, Ultraman, Power Rangers.
Mhm.
A-Man says, would you ever want to write Common Rider? Is that one that you're familiar with?
I am, yeah, for sure. So it would have to be the right fit and the right situation. I can say that like, you know, there has been a reach out on that in the past, but it wasn't the right it just wasn't the right fit for me.
That's okay.
And everything. Yeah. But
Yeah,
I mean I love
and you've
Common
got a lot
Rider,
going on.
and yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Um, any piece of advice for someone that wants to write comics professionally? You got like
Yeah.
any pieces of advice?
Um yeah, how much time do we have? No, it's
A minute.
so the tricky thing is that the market and the industry has changed a lot since I came up. I would argue that the pipeline through a Marvel and a DC doesn't really exist anymore in the way that it used to,
That's
where
fair.
you could find your way onto Marvel and DC's radar by a variety of methods and a variety
Mm.
of different types of books that you can make self-published, or or a place like Image or other kind of creator-owned companies. And I say creator-owned in quotes because outside of Image, there is no truly creator-owned company in
They're all pretty
comics.
different. Yeah, there's some decent ways that you can keep at
Mhm.
least most of your rights, but I agree. Like Image is the most sort of pure version of
It
that
is
idea.
it's the purest. But while things have changed quite a bit, what hasn't changed is that the only way someone's going to and I'm going to answer this question specifically from a kind of like commercial standpoint, like doing it not just like anyone can make comics, and we all say like
Yeah,
if you want to make comics, just make comics, like, and you're already doing it. But from the standpoint of like making comics and trying to build a career out of it where you're making a living monetarily doing it, um, I would say that like the first barrier to entry is you got to finish stuff and you have to put it out there. And the good news is that the world has never been kind of more interconnected for good and for bad. And so like I say this a lot on panels, like there's no such thing as undiscovered genius in the year 2023. Like if your stuff's good, people will find it.
yeah,
Um,
I think that's fair. But
I
I think
think
that
that
like as simple as that sounds, by the way, finish something. People can like when they're writing, they can get really hung up on the world building and how important these characters are
yeah,
and everything. And I'll feel like let me just this is my advice,
yeah,
not Kyle's, but I'm but related. I feel like something that can really help is maybe don't start with your most precious idea, your most something that's really like personally important to you. Have like a couple ideas out there and wait until you find the right collaborator or something like
yeah.
that, unless you're also an artist and a writer. But I just feel like
So
getting it out there is just really important.
I have two pieces of really practical advice. The first is if you're looking to do stuff in long form and you think you're ready, and you have to really be honest with yourself, and you have either the right artistic collaborator or you're drawing it yourself. I do think Kickstarter is a really great community to launch projects with. And the thing about Kickstarters is that as you're making the thing, you're
That's good.
also putting out updates about the thing. So you're creating kind of a feedback loop as you're
Mhm.
building a community and readership, hopefully, and kind of fan
That's
base.
good.
And it starts small, but it's very grassroots. And it's a way to like, you're not just toiling over stuff in a vacuum for months and months and months. Like you are out there updating people and showing stuff as you're doing it. So that can help you to keep going. Okay. The second thing, though, is, and I haven't seen anyone do this yet, um, make shorter comics. Like, unfortunately, there are way,
Yeah,
way, way too many books. There's way too many books in the market. There just are. There's way too many small publishers that are all just kind of hanging on. And hanging on from the standpoint of not like glomming on. I mean, hanging on from the standpoint of like stuff's not selling. There's just
financial.
way too much product.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to like get going, the idea of like making like your stuff has to have great art, great color, great lettering, great logo. Make shorter stuff.
Even if you have
Go
like
make
an ongoing idea, you need to think of a way to shorten that to like a one shot or a 3 issue sort of like arc or something like that
there's a
to
writer
catch interest.
there's a writer that I've known for a long time, and I don't know where he is these days, but his name was Matthew Todd, and he was a really big comic book supporter, He lived in LA for quite some time. He was always at conventions and shows and everything. It's about over 10 years ago now. And everyone liked Matt. Very humble guy, very kind of quiet spoken, but just really supportive of the industry and the creators. Matt went out and did something I haven't seen anyone do before, or since really. He had an idea for a book and he went out and only made a 5-page ash can. But by only making 5 pages, he was able to convince and hire Jonathan Case to draw it.
I
Okay.
think that's awesome. Jonathan Case,
It
great
is
artist. Yeah.
stunning, stunning. You want to know what happens? You look at that and you take it all much more seriously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shorten the amount of pages that you're trying to do in order to accentuate and play to your limitations. So if
Yeah.
your limitations are financial, then make much shorter comics, because doing something shorter at a much higher level than most people are able to pull off on a 22 to 40 page comic is going to cut through the noise in such a way more profound way than just like cranking out or making a 22 page book that doesn't have great art.
That's great practical advice. We've got
Mhm.
time for I think two more questions before I need to like move
Sure.
us on. But here's this is fun. How did getting Walter Jones on the No One podcast come about? That's a fun question.
So Walter Jones is, he started out as Zach Taylor on Power Rangers, the Black Ranger.
Hip hop
Walter's a
keto.
friend of mine. Hip Hop Keto, yep. Walter's a friend of mine. I met him through Power Rangers when I was doing the books, and so Walter and I have wanted to work together for some time. Actually, when I did the Shattered Grid Live table read when I was leaving the book during Power Morphicon in 2018, which is where I blew out my knee. Walter actually did the live table read with us, and he played Zach again for the first time in like 25 years. And Walter is insanely talented. So
That's
when it
nice.
came time to voice cast for Nolan, I told him, like, I want to write you like a really meaty part for this, and he agreed.
That's
So
great.
it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic true crime podcast. I mean, it
Oh,
sounds
thanks.
like I don't know, going back to like some of the first true crime podcasts where, it's
Mhm.
just all about like little audio editing and the way the
Yeah.
voiceover artist like speaks to you. What were some of those early ones? All of a sudden, like now that I'm talking, of course, my audience knows I forget names all the time.
Like
Oh,
Serial, things like that.
yeah, Serial.
Yeah.
There's definitely like that had to influence you, right? Like when
Oh
you were
yeah.
trying
I
to
mean,
come up with the audio sound of it all.
it's a little bit there's definitely a balance between like how much do we commit to the bit versus how much do we make sure it's intelligible
Right.
and legible. And so there some of the like the methods of like,
I
well, where
love
is this
Phil.
audio source that they're playing coming from? A lot of it's
Okay.
cleaner than it probably would be in real life, but that's where you're balancing the like, you know, yeah.
There's a heightened reality. There's a heightened
Hmm.
reality that you can
Yeah.
play into, and I think people will go along with. And let me end this one. This is Radiant Black. Yeah. How did you come up with
Hmm.
Radiant Black? How much of the original Sentai series of Power Rangers played a role in its creation?
Hmm. Well, I would say
What was the
not
impetus?
directly the original Sentai series, but spiritually for sure. One of the things that happened when I was doing Power Rangers, and it was throughout the run, but definitely towards the tail end, is I really kind of found a lot of the tokusatsu stuff that I'd been aware of, but never really dove into.
Hmm.
And some of that came really out of Matt and Michael. Um, I remember after Power Morphicon or around that time, they were in LA and staying with me, and they explained to me what Jew Ranger was about. That's the season that became Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And when they described it to me, I was like, "Whoa, this is wild!" Like, and the
Yeah.
idea that the Megazord, the Dragonzord, and Titanus would create kind of three parts of the Holy Trinity, and like, it's like, "Whoa, okay!" Like, I'm really interested in this. So we watched some of the episodes of Jew Ranger, and then I ended up finding Ultraman and Kamen Rider, and Kamen Rider Build was like really my gateway into Kamen Rider. Um, Having said all that, it's not as much. It's definitely more of a spiritual influence on Radiant Black. There's certainly an aesthetic
Sorry, guys.
influence. There's certainly an aesthetic influence as well. But the way that I look at it is like Radiant Black to me is about not only celebrating comic books and superheroes and that our love of those characters and the mediums that have done superhero storytelling, but also looking to do things that are kind of pushing the medium and pushing the genre in new directions. Um, but with that love letter to it all, I thought it was interesting to explore these kind of like very specific millennial issues through the aesthetics of
Mm,
our childhood. And
yeah.
so that combination of aesthetic and also there, look, like Radiant Black, like I would actually argue it's much more Kamen Rider than it is Super Sentai. And I mean, going
I can
back to
see
your
some of
original
that.
Kamen Rider, the secret two-hander between Nathan and Marshall is very Kamen Rider, you know?
I loved that twist. It took several issues to like realize that this was
Mhm.
going to be about more than just sort of Nathan and his supporting cast. You
Yeah,
know, at first it just seems like Marshall and Nathan's parents are part of his supporting cast, and then you realize no, Marshall has a much bigger role to play in all of this
yeah,
than we originally realized. That was really
yeah.
nice. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to start reading as the timeline diverges. I think that's going to be a
Yeah,
blast.
yeah,
I
it's
hope you
pretty
have an
fun.
awesome time at New York Comic Con. I'm very confident you will. I hope some of you guys watching this, either live or once it gets archived, are able to swing by the MassiveVerse table or the Black. What do you call it again? Black narrative?
Oh, black market narrative.
Black
Yeah.
market narrative. Everybody knows I forget names all the time. It's just a thing. Um, yeah, that's awesome. Congrats on being at a point where you can like justify having your own booth. To me, that sort of heralds the comic conventions coming back a bit because I've been missing
Yeah,
the big booths by publishers and big imprints. They haven't been there
yeah.
as much in the last couple of years, and the fact that you're doing it this year and getting so many of the artists and writers that are working on that MassiveVerse stuff there is pretty exciting. I think it'll be a lot of
Ah,
fun. I really do.
awesome. Thank you. Well, please swing by when you're there,
Yes,
and if
will
you're
do.
around Friday night, come out to Barcade, and we'll play some Turtles in Time or X-Men
That would be
or
nice.
there's a bunch. First game's on me, so
Okay, good because you're rich.
no,
Just saying.
it's comics, baby. No, I'm not.
Anyway, no, I had a great time talking to you. Have fun tonight, Kyle. Have fun in New York. Enjoy the East Coast. I hope it's good to you. And yeah, we'll probably talk this weekend.
Awesome. Sounds good, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Take care.
All
Take
right,
care.
take care.
That was pretty nice, I think. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That definitely went longer than I was initially intending. So, Kyle, if I was holding you up, I apologize. I always have a good time talking to Kyle. I always have a good time talking to him. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm so glad and that I discovered Radiant Black and through that some of his other stuff. And I'll just tell you guys, it was you here in the chat room that kept recommending Radiant Black when it came out. So like that and on Comic Tropes, like people were talking it up, and I do listen to that stuff when there's certain comics or creators that get mentioned again and again. You know, I'm like, oh, why am I hearing about Dan Morris so much? Oh, really exciting artist. You know, things like that. Um, we've got some news of the week. Oh, I'm glad that you enjoyed that. That's awesome. It was a legit full interview. It was longer than I expected. Thank you guys for submitting some questions. Um, Kyle's very generous with his time. If you ask him a question, you're going to get a lengthy answer, not just like a one word answer. But we've got some interesting news of the week that I want to get into. And I guess we'll start by just again, I'm back at home, so I can create these incredible thumbnails. I don't need to just take a quick photo like I did when I was in Japan. No, I can use my Photoshop skills to their fullest and really just blow everything else out of the water. I mean, there's a reason why I am known as Mr. Comics. And it's because of stuff like this. Will I be at New York Comic Con? I'm going to go with my buddy that I was talking about earlier on Saturday. We're going to be going there Saturday. So that should be fun. And I'm just walking around. What's that my sister's doing? Oh, she's embarrassed by how much I'm talking myself up. So here's what I'll do instead. We'll go to the amazing PowerPoint that I put up. Marvel put out a new Shang-Chi book, but I thought it was interesting in the sense that it was designed for all ages. So, specifically, this is a graphic novel called Shang-Chi and the Quest for Immortality, and it's about Shang-Chi back at age 12. We know a lot of his superhero stuff in the Marvel Universe, or really before he was a superhero, he was kind of more like a spy in his original comics. This is going to focus on his history being trained as the heir to the Five Weapons Society and his first quest into the outside world. He still thinks of his father as a good person. Spoiler, he ain't. And he's worried that his father's losing his power, so he goes out into the world to find something called the Peaches of Immortality. But this is being written and drawn by, this is the most interesting part to me, Victoria Ying. Victoria Ying has done some all-ages comic books, but I would say that her career really started and she's probably still best known for her art concepts on film. She worked on some pretty big movies: Frozen, Moana, Big Hero 6. I just realized I don't need these headphones anymore, so I'm going to take that off. Anyway, could be a nice book. It is all ages, so it might not be for everybody, but Victoria Ying's really talented. She did a Wonder Woman book like a year or so ago, so that could be interesting. By the way, I didn't have time to make a coffee today, but I did remember to bring home a glass of sake, so I am enjoying the Hanshin Tigers sake. Hanshin Tigers, so like for the Osaka baseball team. Folks, kick off your shoes and relax your socks, but get them ready because it is time for Spider-Man shoes. Have you been waiting for Spider-Man shoes? Well, that's today's sponsor. No, I just got a kick out of this. Adidas is making Spider-Man shoes to coincide with the Spider-Man 2 video game. So these come out October 20th, which I believe is the same day that the video game comes out. You guys can probably fact check me on that one. There are some good baseball manga out there, but there's not too many baseball comic books. Yeah. This is not chilled. This is just room temperature, but it works. Anyway, as you can sort of see with this image, it's got the Spider-Man colors and then a symbiote style thing creeping in, related to the video game using Venom. Will it shoot webs? I mean, I guess if you take off the laces, you could sort of kick them and pretend that they're webs. I don't know how effective that would be. Thinking it through, probably not very. And this is the part that I got amused by most. Folks, characters in the video game will be wearing Adidas sneakers. So, just beautiful synergy there. What? I can buy a pair of sneakers and then see characters in a video game also wearing the same brand of sneakers? Talk about comic books. I don't know, Daryl. Can you? I want some Godzilla shoes. Me too. Me too. I want to stomp on them and they'll shoot some atomic breath. To be honest, if I go hiking for long enough, that does happen. A symbiotic relationship. Beautiful. Considering the amount of suits in the game, how many shoes are there? They say that these are the people walking around in the background in New York City. They'll be wearing Adidas. So I guess there's going to be times in the game where you have to like have Superman land on the ground, stay very still, like crouch down and like take out his camera and zoom in on people's feet, which I assume will appeal wildly to a very small subsection of the video game playing population. But that's a thing you can do. And you could go, Adidas. Run DMC tells me that these are very cool. And that's the biggest news that I have this week. It's all downhill from here. No, this is fun. I love Usagi Yojimbo. The comic itself gives you all sorts of cool Edo period Japanese adventures with samurai and sometimes supernatural stuff. You learn a lot about the culture. You learn a lot about the food and the clothing and stuff. You legit do. The government, but there's also sort of a spin-off, sort of just its own separate thing of like a way in the future ancestor of Usagi Yojimbo, who's in the future, and they call those comics Space Usagi, and that's been made into like cartoons recently. There's been action figures and stuff, but Space Usagi is returning in a one shot here. So specifically, comes out this week, Wednesday. You've got this new Space Usagi one shot. It's by Stan Sakai, same guy that does it all. And let's see. It looks like Usagi has moved from IDW to Dark Horse. Did I say that it came from Dark Horse? Or did it IDW? Anyway, it's called Yokai Hunter. That implies that we will see Usagi go up against some sort of spirits. That sounds fun. A good mix of sci-fi and supernatural. And there was more to this. Where was it? Oh, yeah. There's going to be variant covers. Something like 5 or 6 of them. But some of the names that stood out to me were Chrissy Zulo. That stuff's great. And Peach Momoko, which is the one that I've captured here. Boy, when it comes to yokai, after somebody like Shigeru Mizuki, I love seeing yokai represented by Peach Momoko. That is a Peach Momoko cover. Yes, Peach Momoko. So that'll sell well. I hope it does well. I like Usagi Yojimbo. It's going to be 32 pages. As to what the actual plot is, I couldn't really find anything that told me. It was just like a mystery story. Okay. At this point, though, you're either going to try this because you like Stan Sakai or you're not. Yeah, cover does look nice. That cover's beautiful. It's pretty nice. It's pretty darn nice. Part of why I decided to share it. So Netflix's One Piece continues to be a huge hit for them. It is continually in the top 10 most watched shows that Netflix is promoting, and it's been out for several weeks now. So that is saying something. And apparently it's attracted both a large and a diverse audience. So we already know that the live action adaptation has had a second season announced, big enough to warrant that. That's good. Creator Eiichiro Oda has hinted that Tony Chopper will appear in the second season. Anybody that reads the manga or watches the anime will know Tony Chopper is sort of the cute mascot. He's a sentient deer and the ship's doctor. And if that sounds nuts, I guess you don't know One Piece. It's pretty bonkers. Somebody saying that it's McKenyu's damn good looks that make the show work. McKenyu is a really nice part of it. He's the son of martial arts and screen legend Sonny Chiba, who we best know from Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, not the Street Fighter movies. Tokyo Drift, and Kill Bill, right? Yeah. Anyway, he's really awesome actually as Zorro. I can sort of say it, but what do we know? So speaking about the audience, Variety reported this past week that it's earned 1.3 billion minutes of view time. Boy, yeah, I wish Netflix was more open and transparent. I wish all the streaming services were about like how many full views or whatever did the show get, like compare it to what we know from TV. But either way, billion is such a massively large number that is saying something. That is definitely saying something. Seeing the Chopper drawing with the live action music had me hyped. Yes, that's pretty cool. Everyone knows Sonny Chiba from Message from Space. I've never seen Message from Space, but I will say that if you want to see Sonny Chiba in something comic book related, he did do a live action Golgo 13 movie. That's pretty badass. Set in Hong Kong and filmed there. It's really cool. It really sucks that COVID took Sonny Chiba before his time. Really sucks. Oh man, tell me about how much I'd love that. A monster live action series. That would be such a good TV show. Yep, his dad was Sonny Chiba. Glad to share something like that. Jamie Lee Curtis is a massive One Piece fan. She wanted to play Nico Robin. It obviously wouldn't really work. She just said that's like the character that she relates to. Um, Trust me, they're going to find a way to put Jamie Lee Curtis in the show since she's been talking about how much she likes it. And, you know, she's a name act. They'll find a way. I believe that. I believe him. But anyway, so yeah, 1.3 billion minutes. Oh, you know what happened? That writer's strike just recently reached a compromise with the Producers Guild. One of the things that they asked for was more transparency in terms of views that the shows get, so that people, the writers, could get paid adequate royalties. You know, like they don't know. There's no transparency in how much something's getting watched, whereas in TV and film and stuff there is transparency. So we may start getting actually more accurate ratings info on some of these shows. There's one last piece to this. Nielsen ratings did track the audience for One Piece, and they found that it was 25% Hispanic and 19% African American. It definitely means that One Piece is appealing to a lot more than just, you know, white guys in their mom's basement to play on the trope, if you will. Impressive. I would love to see what the breakdown was between men and women. I don't know, but it definitely is getting a lot of views. It's getting a lot of views. And you know what? I only watched the first episode because I want to like get much further ahead on the anime first. I want to see that version first, but I really liked what I saw. It was really clean, well choreographed action, and I thought the characters were charming. I did, so we'll see. I don't quite understand that criticism. Who did they race swap in the show? I feel like it's all pretty much accurate. The only characters that really felt like they strongly had a race when I read the manga and watched the anime were Usopp, always read as some sort of African nationality, and Sanji's definitely some sort of a white guy. But after that, I never really got a distinct race. So I don't quite know what you mean by race swapping. I don't know. Oh, I don't discriminate. Let's see. We'll go on to some more fun news. As long as we're talking about TV and streaming, Loki season 2 debuted. Pretty interesting. Sets up a new dynamic, but like one where he'll probably still have to visit variant timelines, but like the motivations for the characters have changed. So we get sort of a little bit the same, a little bit different. In my opinion, Loki's kind of the premier MCU show. Probably some of that is Tom Hiddleston himself. I mean, he made that character his own. He really did. So let's talk about the goals with the show. I found this part interesting. So Marvel Studios Executive Vice President Kevin Wright was promoting Loki 2 in an interview with Variety. I love it too, Jeannie. We'll have to talk about it sometime. If episode 1 confused you, just know that it isn't like really alternate timelines. It's the same place at different points in time, if that helps you understand what's going on. Loki figures that out if that wasn't clear. But the TVA does not know that. He was going back in time, basically. He was skipping back in time. No, the exec isn't spoiling it. They're just talking about their goal, not necessarily what will happen. Okay, they're talking about one part of their goal. There's more than one goal, just to be clear. So he was talking about Loki season 2, and specifically, he had this to say, that he was asked if Loki would ever join the MCU movies, and Kevin said, "That's the hope. I don't want to." And then he paused. Yeah, I think the sun shining on Loki and Thor once again has always been the priority of the story we're telling. But for that meeting to really be fulfilling, we have to get Loki to a certain place emotionally. I think that's been the goal of these 2 seasons. I'm not surprised to hear that. they got to a point story-wise where they decided to kill Loki off. And technically, this Loki is a variant. But I think the idea of having Loki and Thor together again in like a potential fifth Thor movie, which has not actually been greenlit or anything, so we don't know anything. But I really think that would be financially and audience satisfaction wise a pretty good idea to get Tom Hiddleston back in the next Thor movie. And this would change up their relationship a bit because this Loki has gone through a slightly different set of circumstances. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think it makes sense as a goal to get him to a point where he could rejoin the Marvel universe in the movies. We'll see. They definitely haven't been afraid to show some emotional growth during the run. I absolutely agree. And to me, that's the sign of any good movie or TV show, is that the character is in a different place when it ends than when it began. And I think that the Loki at the end of season 2, the end of season 1, was different than the Loki that began at season 1, but isn't quite where the Loki that we knew in the movies ended up. So it is different. It is different. My sister-in-law hates Marvel movies, loves Loki's show. Well, it's probably because of the actor, I'm going to guess. I think that, honestly, two of the best actors that the MCU got was Tom Hiddleston and Robert Downey Jr. And I'm not necessarily talking in pure acting talent. There's lots of great actors. They've done a great job casting in general in the MCU. They really have. But it's that those actors really made the characters their own. You know, they weren't dishonest to what we know from the comics, but they added a big part of themselves into the character and got them to a place where they were very comfortable playing that version. And I think it works very, very well. I think let's say this is different. I don't care for Hiddleston Loki. I like Loki as a villain. I can understand that. I have liked that too. At the same time, I've been reading comics a long time, and they've been out even longer than me. We've had Loki as a villain for a long time, so to have him as a little bit of an anti-hero does interest me at this point, just because it is something a little different. We've got more news than this. Brian Hitch explained that his Superman: The Last Days of Lex Luthor comic is not late, in his opinion. Let's break that down. So, specifically, issue 2 of the comic was originally solicited to come out in late September. According to DC, it should have already been in stores. They've bumped that back to December 26th. That's obviously a couple months different. And I think when did the first issue come out? Somewhere around late July, I think. So it was originally solicited as coming out once every 2 months, this limited series. But there's more to it. First of all, you should know about the creative team. Beyond Brian Hitch, the writer is Mark Waid, pretty busy guy. The inker is Kevin Nolan, pretty busy guy. It's a top-tier team. It's a really top-tier team. So I was going to post all of what Brian Hitch said. It's on Twitter if you want to read it. It's not like overly long, but it's kind of long, and I was trying to condense it for the news segment. Essentially, what he said was that the book was solicited too early. That DC knew that there were work commitments for the team aside from this book. Mark Waid, when he started writing this, was still an executive at Boom Studios. Brian Hitch had committed to drawing Venom for like a year and a half and the Ultimate Invasion miniseries. So he had other obligations besides this. And so he said, it's too good a story to rush. Yes, they solicited it for now, but I wasn't going to rush it. He really likes the story. And he's like, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. So in his opinion, it isn't late so much as DC solicited it too early. They should have just waited for like more of it to have been completed because they knew it was going to take them longer than just like 3 issues a month or something, like 3 issues over 3 months. I mean, I know, right? Nolan inking Hitch. It definitely looks different. There's definitely, when I've looked at the pages, like Kevin Nolan is on them, but that's a good thing. Kevin Nolan's a great artist. And some of the best inkers were also just like great artists in and of themselves. Yeah. So anyway, if you haven't read it, it seems like a pretty awesome story. Yeah, let's see. Oh, that's an interesting question. Jumping back to the last thing, is there an MCU role that you think was miscast? I would probably have to say Iron Fist to start with. I think that they should have gotten an actual martial artist. That said, I do think a regular actor could have made it work. They just needed to give that show more time. From everything I read, at least in season 1, they had next to no time to choreograph anything. They really rushed that first season of the show. And I think it shows when you look at season 2 that it tends to in general have better fight scenes. But yeah, they probably could have done that better. Oh yeah, Kevin Nolan's amazing. Amazing. Nolan inking Hitch is inspired. It's an interesting matchup. I mean, Nolan is also pretty realistic, but definitely more minimalistic than Hitch in terms of detail, and much more bold with where he does shadows, a little more angular in some of his line art. It's an interesting matchup. For sure. Oh, that's cool. I thought Finn Jones was really good on Game of Thrones. Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Great movie if you've never seen it. It's a silent movie, and it's long, but it's some great sci-fi. Chrissy and I once saw the movie played with an actual full orchestra to accompany it. It was a great way to see the movie. Really, really good movie. I sincerely mean that. Well, it entered the public domain here in the US the beginning of this year. Back in January 1st, that became public domain for the US specifically. So, Rocco Jerome and Cosmic Lion Productions, they have a Kickstarter up right now. It's for the latest issue of Rocco Jerome's Ghost Agents. If you haven't read that, it's a sci-fi series with spies. It's cool. It's fun. It goes anywhere you can imagine. It's really, really cool. And I'm really impressed with the stuff Eli Schwab does at Cosmic Lion Productions. Some good indie comics. These guys are passionate. They do some good stuff, in my opinion. Anyway, they're doing the next issue of Ghost Agents as a Kickstarter right now, but it is a flip book, as in, like, the first half is Ghost Agents. You flip it over, it's a Metropolis book, and they're taking ideas from Metropolis, and eventually some of those ideas will factor into the world of Ghost Agents, because, like I say, it's a sci-fi book that can sort of go anywhere in space and time. It is worth noting, though, that while Metropolis is public domain in the US, it is not public domain in Europe. So I really hope Rocco and Eli are crossing their T's and dotting their I's on this Kickstarter. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know what this would mean, for instance, if they took funds on a crowdfunding project from people in Europe where it's not public domain yet. Basically, in the US, it's 95 years after the work has existed. So we hit that. We hit the 95 years. In Europe, it's 70 years after the death of the creator. So like the 70 years after Fritz Lang passed away. So we won't hit that until 2046. I don't know the rules there. I hope that these guys looked into it. I just don't want them to get in trouble, because I think that they're really nice, creative guys. I just don't want them to have trouble. No, not full black and white. They've got some spot colors to it. So yeah, Ghost Agents, baby. Yeah, got to get on that. Metropolis is amazing. Just look up Ghost Agents on Kickstarter or Metropolis, and you'll probably find it. Yeah, Metropolis was, you can adapt things, but I think that like license fees would have had to have been paid. I don't know all the ins and outs. You can remake stuff. But I'm saying that these guys are doing it as though it's in public domain. So yeah, I'll be there for it. Nice. Yeah, and I think I already said this, that the story in Metropolis will have some of the elements eventually make their way into Ghost Agents. Are you guys into K-pop? There's a good chance some of you are. K-pop is massive. K-pop is so big, so big. Well, there are K-pop comics out there, and they've been sort of there's going to be a panel at New York Comic Con, and basically I'll get into the news. There's going to be some more stuff that we can say. So, Webtoon, the South Korean online comics mega publisher, Webtoon, partnered with Hybe, and that's the entertainment company that owns, among other musical acts, BTS. And then I'm probably going to mispronounce this one because I don't know them as well. NFN and Tomorrow. But they're all huge. I do know that. I'm not an expert on this stuff. I know how to make the BTS symbol. Okay. That's about as much as I know. I'm never going to disrespect it. Their armies are too strong. You are not going to hear me disrespect anything about K-pop. Okay. But so Hybe partnered with Webtoon, and they made comics based on these bands, or inspired in some cases by the bands. Specifically, there was Seven Fates Choco. That was inspired by BTS, where 7 different guys, I think, get superpowers, and each one is inspired by one of the members of the band. There's, for Enifin, there was Dark Moon, the Blood Altar, and for Tomorrow, there was the Star Seekers. They released these as Webtoon, and each of them are like the most subscribed Webtoons out there, in just across all the different genres that Webtoon offers, which is definitely saying something. Respectively, all 3 together had over 70 million views in 1 month. That's humongous. 70 million people read those 3 comics. So now, Eyes Studio, it might be pronounced Ize, don't know. Anyway, either way, it's an imprint of the Korean manhwa publisher Yen Press. They announced that they're going to be releasing print editions of these books in October, November, and December. These are going to sell well, folks. The fan bases for this stuff will pick up additional merchandise in areas that they haven't explored before. They just will. So that's a good thing, in general, for comics publishing and hiring artists and writers and stuff to do this. But if you haven't heard of it before, you probably will start hearing about it over the next couple of months. BTS has one of the most dedicated fan bases I've ever witnessed. Do you think it might do well? It's already done well on Webtoon, getting millions of subscribers, getting millions of views. Yes, I would suspect that the print editions will also sell well. And I would imagine that the panel at NYCC is pretty well attended. Yeah. It does not stand for behind the scenes. What does it stand for? I forget. I do not know what it stands for. I am not an expert. But peace and love to all of you BTS fans out there that are coming across this. Moving on. Avengers dominated Times Square at the Disney store this past week. Sort of. So, October 6th to 7th, the Disney store in Times Square was completely redone. They hosted costumed Avengers, Hulk, Captain America, Captain Marvel, that kind of stuff. They had trivia contests. They gave away gift cards. They were promoting the 60th anniversary of the Avengers. Okay, I like the idea behind it. Like I said, they had hourly raffles for 2 days where they were giving away $25 gift cards. They let people take photo ops with the Avengers. They had exclusive merchandise. Sounds kind of fun if you're in the area. And since I'd seen the press release, I tried to look up on across social media and stuff. I couldn't find any photos or video of the event. So must have gone really exceptional. I just could not find anything about it. I doubt any of you attended. Yeah, okay. I've got a few more crowdfunding things to talk about. I'll call this crowdfunding project 1. Um, you may not know the name Thomas Tenney, but you may remember this era of comics. Thomas Tenney was the artist on Forceworks, which was sort of the next version of West Coast Avengers. It was in the extreme 90s. This was Iron Man had new armor. There was Spider Woman. Some sort of alien joined the group. This is U.S. Agent. That's not his best uniform, in my opinion. Anyway, all I gotta say is that this guy's facing homelessness, and that's nothing I'd want for anybody. So there's this GoFundMe up right now to help him and his family. Um, Apparently, the bank that they pay their mortgage to said that they're in arrears and that they were going to work with them and give them time to come up with the money and pay it back. And then they decided, the bank did, to instead just put it into like foreclosure. So, in order to keep their home and keep from going homeless, they have to pay like $14,000 in terms of like back pay. So he's got a GoFundMe going. I don't want to see anybody go homeless. If anybody that knows Thomas is listening, I hope he's reached out to the Hero Project, because this sounds like the kind of thing that nonprofit is established for, is to help artists that are having trouble with bills. He still works freelance, but he's got health issues. His wife has health issues. He's got kids. Um, there we go. Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, the alien's name was Centurion. Sorry, I forgot that, but thank you for reminding me. That sucks. I always wondered what happened to that guy. He definitely worked at a time when like these issues were selling tremendously huge. And now I guess he's, not getting as much work, and I don't want that for anybody. So I thought I'd at least share this. You would think that the bank would want to come up with like a payment plan to try to like, better to get the money than to not get any of this money and then have trouble selling the house, maybe. I don't know. Oh, you've been homeless? Wow. I'm really sorry that you had to deal with that challenge. William Messner Loebs was homeless. Not He goes in and out of homelessness. Him and his wife. William Messner Loebs is really good writer. Well known for both Wonder Woman and the Max in particular. I've definitely thought about doing an episode on his work. He's a really good writer, but he's been dealing with on and off with homelessness and challenges related to that for a long time. It's tough. It's tough. I don't know this for a fact, but every time I see their him and his wife's sort of GoFundMe's and stuff, I get the sense they might be hoarders, which is part of their problem, but I don't know that for a fact. It's just the sense that I get when I see like, descriptions and photos. Right. He worked on Thor. William Messner Loebs did. Homes are worth more to banks than the mortgages sometimes because of the investor fund-driven housing price boom. Tough one. So just wanted to share it. If somebody was even in a position to donate $5, maybe that adds up. It's too bad that we have to help each other in this regard, but maybe you are in a position to help. Here's another crowdfunding project that's maybe a little bit more fun to talk about. It's a comic book by a friend of mine. I'll just disclose that like real quick. But one that I do think looks amazing from everything I've seen. Harry Partridge is making a comic. Harry Partridge, if you don't know, is primarily known as an animator. He's been making his own hand-drawn animation for over a decade. You can find almost all of it on YouTube. One of his ongoing series is Starbarians. It's really funny, irreverent, I think is fair to say. And, he does employ these days, when he can, assistants to speed the process up, because hand-drawn animation is very time-consuming on the level that Harry does. Harry does very smooth, very detailed animation. It is not just moving, like a rigged character in some sort of like, Flash template or something like that. Harry did the animated opening for my comic Tropes show. So you've seen his work there at the very least. He's great. He's great. He's doing a comic book of his characters, Starbarians. Let's talk about it. So it's on Indiegogo, first of all, and it's called Starbarians Tales. It's going to be, the funds for it will go to producing a 90-page book, pretty big in my opinion. Anything over the budget is going to help fund more Starbarians cartoons. So it will get you that stuff much faster. Let's see. I adore Partridge's animation, especially the intro made for Comic Tropes. Thank you so much. That is an incredibly smooth intro. It's very impressive. It's very impressive. Harry did an exceptional job. Really, really fun to work with him on that. So there's the link, but you could also probably just type in Starbarians comic book, and I bet you'll find it, or go to Indiegogo and type in either Harry Partridge or Starbarians. You're going to find it. Yeah, Kilgar is the guy here on the left. This is Hogstrong, the slightly smarter of the two, and they're mercenaries that go through space getting bounties. But they, especially Kilgar, really like to fight more than anything else. He likes to fight, he likes sex, and he likes meat. He's not the brightest at all. He's so dumb, his eyes will blink independently and sort of wander off in different directions. He's quite an amusing character. If you haven't seen Harry's stuff, another great one that you'd like for comic books, by the way, Harry did an animated intro for Watchmen, the Saturday morning cartoon. It's really funny. One of his more recent things that he did was this blend of live action animation and like fake video game footage for a parody of the original Resident Evil video game. Oh, so good. Yeah, I could sort of see that. I will say that I think that Harry does a little bit more detail potentially. And he's got an animator's sensibility for like motion and angles and stuff. And I think it translates very well to comics from what I've seen. I hope you'll strongly consider checking that out. I might mention it some more. I've supported it already. I want to get this comic. I really hope it happens. It's more than halfway to its goal. So I think it's very, and it's only been up a few days. So I think it really will get there. Nice. I'm glad you guys like Harry's stuff. That's really encouraging to hear. And here's one more crowdfunding project that I want to mention, but with some pretty top tier talent. Sean Murphy apparently loves Zorro. Well, he's going to make his own Zorro comic book, and this has already reached its funding goal. It just went up this week, but it already surpassed its funding goal, which is nice to see. Sean Murphy, just really unique art, detailed. I don't know. I just love his line art. Love it. So he obtained the Zorro license to make his own comic. Zorro came out back in 1919, folks. Basically a pulp novel character, but also one of the first characters to really wear a costume like a superhero would. Because he wears an eye mask, he wears a specific type of what's it called? I forget the name of his hat off the top of my head. He's got a cape. He wears an all black outfit. It's a great look. It holds up really, really well. There are elements of Zorro that are in the public domain, and there are elements that are trademarked. And so Sean wanted to do this carefully, and he got the license because he is doing it. He's doing a riff on it, actually. Let me explain. Oh, yeah. Guy Williams, Disney Channel. I saw some of that when I was young. I saw some of that. What was that? No more plans right now to do any variant covers. I think that project went okay. I think I could probably do a lot better with what I learned from it. But I appreciate all the support I did get. I do. let's talk about what this Zorro comic is. So it's set in the present day. Most Zorro stories are set, late 19th century. It's about a guy named Diego who, as a young man, his parents were killed by the cartel, and it caused a psychotic break such that he now believes he is Zorro and is trained extensively as such, an acrobat, a horse rider, an expert swordsman. He lives his life as Zorro, but I guess within the context of this, Zorro might have actually existed or Zorro might be a fiction. But either way, Diego is in the present day and he thinks he's Zorro. He lives his life as Zorro. It's going to be an 88-page story, the equivalent of like a 4-issue miniseries. There's the link. And Sean Gordon Murphy has said that you shouldn't expect to see him do any more, what do you call it, like Murphy-verse stuff for Batman for a while, because he's going to be busy on this and busy on his own projects. So, yep. Zorro versus Narcos. Exactly. It's more like Don Quixote versus Narcos, since he thinks he's Zorro. But it's a good take on things. Yeah, I think it sounds kind of cool. It looks good. There's more pages that you can see. I just got the regular comic print edition, but you can get this like extended sort of like hardcover book that will have the full story and something like at least 36 pages of the production of the comics, so that you can sort of learn. Sean Murphy has taught a lot of making comics classes, so I have to imagine there's a lot to learn from those. I think he's a great artist, but the premise is not for me. I don't like his writing very much. I'm hit and miss. I like some of it. I don't always care for others. I think he's got some good ideas usually. Yeah. We'll see. We will see. Yeah, it's never too late to join the show. Thanks for jumping in. Sean did an interview with Benny and Sal on Absolute Comics. Oh, cool. Technically, this is also crowdfunding now that I think about it, but there's going to be some Godzilla, Kong graphic novels. Let's talk about that. So we already know that there's a sequel that's being developed by Legendary. Also, that MonsterVerse TV show on, I want to say Apple. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. But anyway, so there's a sequel coming, and they're making 2 original graphic novel prequels. One is Godzilla Kong the Hunted, written by Brian Buccellato, one of the guys that at the top of the show Kyle was talking about, has written with him on stuff like No One. Drawn by artist Dario Formisani. And it's about a Skull Island trophy hunter. Skull Island is where Kong lives. Skull Island trophy hunter baits his trap and sets his sights on the biggest game of all, deep within the hollow earth. Probably a mistake. I bet that guy will get his comeuppance. There's also going to be a MonsterVerse declassified anthology. Wide variety of artists and writers talking about some of the big kaiju in the Godzilla universe. That could be really fun. So there's the link for that. That one's on Kickstarter. So we've had GoFundMe, Indiegogo, and Kickstarter all represented tonight. Tips on getting signatures: prioritize who you want to see. Look at the map so that you know where to go. Don't get distracted by all the cool cosplay and stores. Like, prioritize what you want to get accomplished, because there's a lot to see and do, but you're going to feel bad if you like pause to get a cool sweatshirt that you could have gotten way later in the day. So go straight to the artists that you want. Make sure that, see if they've got a signing schedule. And sometimes there's even tickets that you've got to get. So, like, for instance, it's too late to get a signature by Peach Momoko. Those are gone. This is not the team that's doing JLA versus Godzilla versus Kong. Great question, Rob. That is a book I'm really excited for. That's so over the top, and like I can't wait to see that. That should be a lot of fun. Well, weren't they eventually? Weren't they eventually? Oh my god, like look, Godzilla Kong is fun. It is fun. I like big monsters fighting each other. But the one I'm most excited about is definitely Godzilla minus Zero. That looks interesting. That looks really, really cool. Wait. Kong versus Godzilla versus Predator. He goes for the ultimate trophy. He like kills them and then he kills like King Kong within 2 minutes and then he spends an hour and a half cutting his head off. Hopefully it's calmer this year for Peach at New York Comic Con. It should be. They put a lot of effort into organizing things. There was the ability to both get in a lottery or sign up to get tickets to get either signatures or remarks, and they're all within like a certain hour. So you have your ticket. There's a certain amount of people she's able to see within each hour time frame. And if you miss it, then you miss it. And if you didn't get a ticket, then it's too late. But those are the only people she'll be doing signatures and remarks for. It's not just get in line. Her line was insane all of last year. And there were fights that we talked about that broke out between retailers that were lining up early when they weren't supposed to. It got bad. It got bad. Godzilla versus Kong, Best Friends Bake Off. I'm in. The 2014 Godzilla, it was okay. I don't think any of it was necessarily bad, but I think it only adds up to something like between 10 and 15 minutes of footage of Godzilla, and it was like a 2-hour long movie. It was just way too little for me. Out in Delaware, there are some parents that I really admire. They're battling a ban on manga and anime that came up in the school system there, at this school system that I've got showcased in this image. So Magnolia Middle School recently banned manga in the school, as well as ended the school's anime club. The principal of the school said that they only allow books that are rated E or Y into the school. That means E for everyone and Y for young adult. And I guess they just felt that some manga was way too mature for them, which I guess is technically possible. But honestly, I just don't feel books hurt people. I feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like I ever had any limits on what I could read as a kid. And I read a lot. There was also no internet, to be fair. And we, as a family, just didn't have cable or video games. But still, I read a lot. And I just don't feel any of it messed me up. Even if it was like stuff beyond my maturity level, supposedly. I don't think that like this stuff screws kids up. I just don't. There might be rare instances. I really don't. It's also middle school, not grade school. I feel like by the time I was like, 13, I could read just about everything in it. But I feel like this is a good side, personally. Parents there have gathered a petition to reinstate the club, the anime club, and end the ban on manga in the school. And they've gathered nearly 2,000 signatures. It's a pretty sizable amount for like, a relatively small district. And the school board has said that it hasn't reached its conclusion yet. So this could be reversed. Seriously, what would something like Shakespeare or the Bible be like rated? Because I guarantee you any of these people that are trying to ban the manga are absolutely encouraging their kids to read the Bible. I just guarantee that that's the case. And the Bible has some really effed up stuff that happens within it if you actually read it, which I have from cover to cover. It has everything bad you could think of in it. It's really messed up sometimes. I think that, plus, like, I didn't hear them saying like that the manga that was like going in there was even like Junji Ito or something, There, you're gonna have a problem with like One Piece or My Hero Academia. It's adventure stuff in general. I don't know. I don't think that kids that sit down and read this stuff, I don't think that that's what influences or inspires them to be violent or bullies or anything. I just don't think that that's where any of that comes from. That's my belief. I could be wrong. I'm willing to hear people out that have a different point of view. I am, but I just don't think reading stuff is what messes people up. Let's talk about what I've got in the thumbnail. I can't believe I didn't put this higher up. Let's do it though. Liefeld's Captain America art, which a lot of us have seen by this point. I mean, it's kind of like the go-to example of people that say that they don't like how Liefeld draws. For what it's worth, I think that Liefeld's art can be a lot of fun. I don't think he always puts in a supreme effort. I think that there are clear mistakes, but this is the real art. And if you look really closely, it's probably not showing up great on the video and everything here, but you can even see some of the pencil lines where like Rob thought the spine would go, and he's got the arm. He just sort of draws like this, but doesn't draw like where the forearm fits here, which I just don't understand where the forearm would go. This was actually, just to be clear, this was never published in print. You've seen this before, but if you saw it in print, it was only within the pages of Wizard magazine. It was a promotional image that he drew when he was doing Heroes Reborn in the 90s for Marvel. This was not an actual page that was within the Captain America book that he published. And yeah, it looks weird because Captain America's head is just not in the center. It's like coming out of his shoulder. Like we see that his chest has like, a midline here, although the star is somehow skewed over to his right pectoral. I don't quite understand how that happened. His head should be more like over here. But we've also seen what this was based on. There's an image of Arnold Schwarzenegger where he's doing bodybuilding stuff, and he has his left arm is reaching across to grab his right forearm, and it's bodybuilders do that to emphasize certain muscles. So it's pushing his pectorals sort of like up higher than they would normally go, and he's looking over his shoulder. It's hard to describe, but if you've seen the actual photo of Schwarzenegger and then looked at this, you're like, oh, I totally see what Rob was trying to do, but he still just didn't line everything up right. Let's talk about this auction. So, Heritage Auctions will display this artwork at New York Comic Con. They're going to have a booth, and they're going to have this artwork up on display. I will do everything I can to try to swing by that booth and get an image with it. Like get a photo or get a video. I think that would be a lot of fun. I really do. We'll see what we can do. Oh, don't say that. That's too sad. The only comic that gives Power Girl a run for her money. Cap's waist gives me anxiety. Yeah. There's a lot weird about this. Cap lactates super soldier serum. It's possible. It's possible. Why do we see the neck muscles? What material is that? I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think it was thought out. But so anyway, Heritage Auctions is going to show this at New York Comic Con. I'm going to try to see it. And then Heritage Auctions is going to be auctioning this off in November. Look, this is going to go for a lot of money. It is. Rob Liefeld is still very popular. He has a fan base. And this is, even if you don't like it, you sort of have to admit that it's a very well-known piece of artwork. So it does have some historical significance within comics. I expect it to go for a lot. I really do. I don't know what a lot means. I have a hard time placing a number on it. I'll say that I think it will go for hundreds of thousands. I really do think that. I think that there are wealthy investors out there that will like buy this. That's what I think. It's just too famous. No, we're not going to have that. Ban user. Done. You're going to pay $147.84. Don't think that's going to be enough. Don't think you pay me to take it. Wait, just notice that his pants are pulled up to his armpits. Well, his armpit's here, and this is his pants. His pants line is here, so it's more at the I don't know. You'll pay $350. Nice. I'd rather have a nice Jack Kirby of Cap leaping forward into action. So would I. No question. That's what I would prefer. I'm just saying I think it will go for a lot. Yeah, you know what? There aren't too many pouches. Liefeld kept pretty close to the Captain America design. He made one big change. If you look at Captain America, he normally has an A for America on his forehead. Liefeld changed that to an eagle. But to me, that looks more like the Wonder Woman symbol. So that never quite matched up. That was the only thing he did. But I also like that, like, the wings on this side of the head go back, kind of like what we're used to. And then on this side, they go whoop up into the air. Up into the air. His pouches are high because he's super old. His pants are high. That makes more sense then. The eagle forehead is bad too. Well, who knows? It would be a fascinating piece of history to own. Wonder Woman's daughter is going to get her own comic book. How many of you knew that she had a daughter? This is a pretty recent development. So specifically, we're talking about her future daughter. We know that in the future, like the next generation, she has a daughter named Trinity. Well, that's her superhero name, technically. That's going to be coming out in January of 2024. It's going to be a 48-page one-shot. It is going to be by the same creative team that's doing the new Wonder Woman run. Tom King, writer, Daniel Sampere on art. And it's going to tell stories of Trinity when she was very young, alongside her babysitters, Damian Wayne, the future Batman, and John Kent, the future Superman. What is that collar? I'm pretty sure it's a reference to sort of how Damian Wayne's Robin often has a collar to his cape, so it's a little different. Yes, this is a Tom King, Daniel Sampere creation, pretty new. We're gonna get tales of her as a young kid. People seem interested. It's also going to include a reprint of her first appearance, a short story that was published in Wonder Woman 800 last month. Yeah. So basically, it's about the new sort of next generation of the superheroes: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and she's sort of basically their little sister, because they all sort of grow up together. I get a kick out of that idea. I get a kick out of their dynamic. I think Daniel Sampere is a good writer, and Tom King's been putting out some really good comics lately. Again, I recommend Danger Street, and one that ended this year, started last year, Human Target. Those are two really good books. Daredevil has elicited controversy from various religious teachers. I, for what it's worth, think this accusation is bullshit, and the only reason I'm really acknowledging it is because the artist, Aaron Cooter, did respond to the accusations. So we'll get into it, but this is a little weird. Did I freeze? I think I froze. Hold on. Okay, there, I caught up. Sorry, guys. Oh, it's getting a little laggy there. I'm just trying to be still to see if it catches up. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I guess I'm dealing with a little bit of lag there. So Daredevil just relaunched. New run, new creative team. And in the first issue, it features Daredevil battling a demon. These days, Matt Murdock is operating as Daredevil, but also he's a priest. He's a Catholic priest. Okay. Uh, this was a quote in an article that I found online by somebody named Malka Simkovich, a director of Catholic Jewish Studies at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. Here's what she says. This illustration draws from an ancient tradition of demonizing Jews in literature and art to portray the clash, a clash between good and evil. The hooked nose and the beard, as well as the weathered and wrinkled forehead, suggest that the antagonist in question is a demonic rabbi. What? I mean, yes, there is such a thing as stereotypical art that like can be racist, but I'm literally showing the panel right here that she's talking about. Well, artist Aaron Cooter did respond to this. This article was published on a site called religionnews.com, so I think that they are sort of biased. But here's what he replied. He said, "If you're comparing my art to that of Nazi propaganda, well, that's just insane. Completely laughably insane. Also extremely and utterly insulting. I will point out that in the Nazi propaganda that I'm aware of, I'm no expert, dark hair is also a key component. Also, being short in height is a key visual component, neither of which are components in the villain design. Literally any kind of person can have large facial features and long hair. There is no correlation here." I agree. If you're going to draw a demon, I don't think it's that weird to like have like sort of a weird shaped nose and long hair. I looked at it and I was like, I do not see a caricature of of a Jewish person. I just don't see that there. It's such a weird thing, but like this lady Malka Simkovich was not the only person to accuse him of that in the article on Religion News. There was also like a rabbi that said he saw it. I'll be honest. I just don't see it. I think it's seeing something that isn't there. I think it's something that isn't there, but that's just me. That's just me. And the only reason I even acknowledged it is because Aaron himself did respond. So I was like, okay, I mean, if he thought it was worthy of response, I guess that's worthy of news. If it was just these people with saying these things, I go, well, I disagree. I don't see like enough of a response to justify that being news, but he did respond. So I'm just saying that like I'm allowed my opinion as well. I don't see the accusation. I just don't. Just don't. But who knows? I'm going to take Aaron at his word in this regard because I don't see any other news. I like was like, has he ever had any controversy before that I'm not aware of? No, I couldn't find anything like that. So I think that they're looking for something that isn't there. I don't know. I don't know if she read the issue or not. I will say that like when people try to ban comics and manga or accuse them of racism and stuff, it's very easy because you can pull one image and it's a still image and it's out of context. And an image out of context in comics can often look very weird and silly. You know, they can be saying something that without context just doesn't, you know, I don't know. There's tons of examples you can find from like 1940s and 50s comics of characters saying like, I feel gay, you know, like, or, you know, somebody like Superman or Batman saying something like that. Out of context, it seems like bizarre, but yeah. Okari, thank you. That's nice of you to say. Thank you. Yes, welcome back. Anyway, there's really nothing more to say about that one, is there? Apparently book channel graphic novel sales are down, but let me put that in full context before it's not quite that simple. Let's see. So this comes from Kristen McLean. She's an executive director, primary industry and analyst for Circana Books and Entertainment. She hosted a presentation at the Comics Pro webinar earlier this week, October 5th. And this comes from website ICV2, who talked about the event. So Circana tracks about 85% of U.S. book sales. They get enough data to account for about 85% looking at bookstores and specialized channels. So it's not 100%, but it's 85% is enough to notice trends and stuff. Here's what she noted. Sales of graphic novels from January to August of 2023 are down 19% from the same period last year, 2022. However, that is just compared to last year. It is worth noting that the baseline for sales has shifted because sales in 2022 were up 78% going all the way back to 2016. So 2021 and 2022 featured massive gains in terms of comic, book, and manga sales. Some of that was due to the pandemic. People were a little bit more isolated and they were reading more. So sales went up in those years, went up quite a bit. So when you account for that huge sales spike that started in 2021 and continued not quite as much as 21's, but did continue in 2022, yes, sales this year are down from last year. They haven't continued to go up. They didn't stay even. They did go down a little, but these are still bigger numbers than if we jump back 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. They're still above those levels. So it's gone down a little. I would just say that I think that that's to be expected. They did also note some interesting figures just in terms of the top selling manga. That included One Piece, Tokyo Revengers, Oishi no Ko. What's that one? It's called something like Dun 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 or Duna Dun Dun. What I can't think of the name of it. You guys know that I always mess up. So anyway, yeah, thank you for helping me out there, William. Yeah, the pandemic juiced the numbers. They really did. They really did. Let's see. It's pretty good that they kept most of the sales spike from the pandemic. Lots of people tried manga and stayed with it. Yeah, that's it. Dan to Dan. That Oishi no Ko, One Piece, Tokyo Revengers, those are some of the top selling manga right now. Those are selling really, really well. So there's still a lot of really positive numbers overall. It has dipped since this time last year. 19% is not nothing. That is a dip. I wouldn't necessarily call it something to panic over. But yeah, worth noting. Worth noting. Got 3 more pieces of news. Dynamite announced a whole host of more Disney comics, which I find interesting because, of course, Disney owns Marvel. So you would, they're doing things there like Star Wars. What else are they doing? They do some of their 20th Century Fox properties, Alien, Predator, Planet of the Apes. But for their actual Disney stuff, they seem to have a good partnership going with Dynamite these days. We know that Dynamite's doing well with Gargoyles, and what was the other one? The Darkwing Duck. So now we've got some more. These are things that are coming out in the January timeframe. We've got a Lilo and Stitch book coming out by Greg Pak, good writer. That interests me a little. An artist named Julia Giagamino? I'm so terrible at reading names. Giagamino, I'll say. Well, I don't know. They could always put out an imprint or something if they wanted to, I guess with licensed titles, the publisher takes all the financial risk. That's probably true too. They're taking the risk there. I used to like the Gargoyles show. Nice. There's more. It's not just Lilo and Stitch. There's also a Cruella de Vil comic coming up. Because that's right, they've been doing some of the villains too, right? They did like Scar. Did they do Hades? I want to say they did something else. Um, the Cruella de Vil is going to be written by Sweeney Boo, art by Mariana Puglia. Darkwing Duck is getting sort of a spin-off called Justice Ducks. Apparently, he's got a team of like young crime fighters. I've never watched the show. I'm not an expert on that. But Roger Langridge is writing that. He's done a lot of great stuff before. Art by Carlos Cid Loro, who I believe does the current Darkwing Duck series. So, like, staying with that. And finally, the next arc of Gargoyles has been announced. It's going to be called Gargoyles Quest, written by series creator, showrunner for the cartoon, Greg Weisman, and art still by Clayton Crane. So, yeah. I think her motivation will be fashion. Getting into high fashion. Yeah, he's a good artist and a good writer. He did a fun Muppets comic for a while. So anyway, let's see. Scar, Hades, and Maleficent. Right, Maleficent. So I guess Cruella de Vil is part of their villains line. I don't know. I go to a couple comic shops in my area. One of them focuses honestly mostly on superhero stuff. Marvel and DC, they do have some stuff by, Image and, Boom and IDW. They don't sell tons of this stuff, but it must be doing well at some of the other stores because, yeah, like launching a bunch more. Ooh, Atlantis is a good idea. I feel like you could get Mike Mignola to do some covers for that. If you don't remember, Mike Mignola famously did the character and world designs for the Atlantis animated movie. There's a lot to explore with that world. That's a fun idea. Treasure Planet I didn't watch, so maybe that's good too. I don't know. Yep, Clayton Crane doing an ongoing. The animator of Scar and Jafar is the animator of Lilo. You talking about the movies? The person who did like Scar and Jafar also did Lilo? Oh, Great Mouse Detective. That was one I enjoyed when I was a kid. I liked that one. I like this sake. I'm going to wrap things up pretty soon. We're not going to do too much of looking at new comics, unfortunately, this week. I went too long with that interview. I was just having so much fun with Kyle. We'll probably be back to some comic book reviews next week, though. Oh, Vault. Vault is making another comic book free to retailers. Free to retailers. But the retailers get to sell it and make the profit. Interesting business model. So what happened is Vault offered a book called Unnatural Order, written by, is it Kyle Yost, I believe? Who's written a bunch of Marvel stuff and movies and stuff too. Vault offered Unnatural Order to retailers for free, a certain amount, not like an unlimited amount, but like, they offered that, and they had 137,000 copies ordered. That's really impressive. So maybe this makes sense. Now they're offering it for this upcoming comic called Beyond Real. Those come in bundles of 25. So like a retailer can order like 25 copies is my understanding. It's free. And then they get to sell it for cover price, $4.99. That's a great profit for a retailer and a pretty good motivation to give some valuable shelf space to a pretty new indie publisher. So there are advantages to everybody here. Not something they could kind of do as on an ongoing basis, but to at least like try to put it in front of readers and financially incentivize them. It's not nothing. It's not nothing. 25 to a retailer, that's pretty good. Here's the premise of this one, Beyond Real, as long as I'm talking about it. When struggling artist June is injured in a severe car accident that leaves her boyfriend in a coma, she begins to experience strange visual phenomena. Soon, she's able to see that we are all actually living in a computer simulation. June must set out on a journey of possibility and peril into the metaphysical layers of the simulation to reach the world's creator and save her true love from death. I kind of like that. A bit of a Matrix type of story. I feel like there's something about that, like that sometimes we feel like are we really in the real world, or is all of this just taking place around me and I'm the central character? I think that there's something about that. I think there's something about that. We'll see. Bold strategy, but I like to see artists, and in this case, a publisher, take a financial risk on themselves. And I feel like that when you bet on yourself, that gives me confidence that you really do believe you've got something good. I don't think that they would risk losing money like this if they didn't think it would pay off. It's a pretty confident move. It's pretty yeah, there's some Invisibles and Matrix stuff. Exactly. Invisibles too. Yeah. It obviously must have worked well enough that they're willing to do it right away for this one. That can't have been the original plan. I'm convinced. I love when media gives me an existential crisis. I'll be honest. I think that I'm more interested in this than the Unnatural Order. But if it's easy enough for me to get a hold of at a store, I'll give these a shot. I really will. It's nice to also know that if I get them, I'm really benefiting the retailer. Like, I like to help a comic shop. I want them to be around. Oh yeah, that's important. Who is the creative team? Bear with me. I'll pull that up. Give me a sec. What was it? Beyond Real. The creative team. Writer is Zach Kaplan. I know Zach Kaplan's done a ton of comics. It's got a huge creative team like listed for the art. Let me drill into this because I think some of them are like the colorists and letterers and stuff like that. Okay, I guess they've got several artists. Oh, maybe it's because of the surreal nature of the comic. We've got Fabiana Mascalo, Tony Fejzula, Vincenzo Riccardi, Dennis Menhir, Jorge Corona, Luana Vecchio, and Liana Kangas. Okay, so we're basically employing Italy. That's okay. There's a lot of great artists in Italy. Yeah, Kitty's getting hungry. All right, one more piece of news. Let's talk about some manga things. This is big. Japan just launched a consumption tax, or really changes to their consumption tax laws. I know that sounds very dry. I'm going to try to break it down into the most digestible form that I can for you. This happened while I was there. October 1st, this launched. So what they've done is they have now made invoices subject to income tax. Let me break that down further. What it does is it removes effectively, not that that was the main goal of this adjustment. This was like supposed to like be a change for businesses to make sure that they're getting like the full income tax that they should. But what it does is for small business or basically self-employed type artists, as freelancers, they will now have to pay taxes on invoices where they used to have like a low threshold before they had to declare stuff. Like as long as you didn't make a certain amount of money, you didn't have to declare each individual invoice. It was more about like, okay, I make X number of dollars a year. I'm supposed to pay this much tax. Now you have to pay a tax on each of these invoices, which is more. You'd be paying more tax as an individual. So, according to manga creator Rion Yutaka, 20.6, so just over a fifth of manga creators who were polled for a survey, talking about this topic, said that they now feared that this would lead to bankruptcy, that this would cost them so much that they couldn't make ends meet. Almost 60% of manga artists make less than the equivalent of about $13,000 a year. Now, the top people make great money, just like in US comics. But, you come up with a comic like, we'll just say Tokyo Revengers, My Hero Academia, One Piece. Trust me, they're making great money. They are. There's all sorts of royalties for the tankobon. There's licensing money for the anime and the toys and the video games. Lots of great money on top of getting paid a great, effective page rate from the publisher. But a lot of people that work in comics are not necessarily the person that's got that main title. A lot of them are assistants. And a lot of them, honestly, like, this is sort of like a part-time job, and they've got like a full-time job. Okay. A lot of artists that call themselves manga artists are not the people that are credited as the main person on a title. That's what I'm trying to make clear. They're people that do this as like a part-time job, but now they feel that they're going to be taxed too highly for what they're making. It's not popular. And what's funny is it didn't seem like it was popular with anyone. So it's really confusing why this was pushed through. This was probably just some politicians that like really felt that this was the best way to do things, and they sort of pushed this through despite, citizens and businesses and input from like, stakeholders like that, like not really thinking it's a great idea. It's tough. It's tough. Who knows what the actual effect will be? It just happened, but people are nervous. Leave it to the government to find a way to screw the little guy. Maybe. Seems like they need to raise the income threshold before they tax people. And that's effectively what it was when you didn't have to declare each invoice. You just say like, hey, I can prove that I'm making this much a year. I should be in this tax bracket, essentially. Something much simpler. But now you're paying taxes on each little invoice. And they're a very paper-based society over there. So trust me, everything is invoiced. An uphill battle for the arts. Japan's economy is also doing pretty not good. So this is an especially bad time to do this. Yes. Japan has a rapidly increasing median age. There are a lot more elderly people than young people. Their rural areas are getting abandoned as young people move to the cities for job opportunities, and there's not enough sort of middle class to support life out in the further out areas. There's just not enough people. There's not enough people. Like they've got a decreasing population. It's a serious concern. They really rely on tourism as well, and they shut that off for like 2 years. So yeah, we are talking generally about people like background artists, inkers, screen toners, those kinds of people. Yeah. I guess this would still make things difficult for artists who are below the threshold because it makes doing your taxes harder. There's a lot more individual stuff to account for. From what it looks like, this just came into practice, so we'll have to see if it's all been thought out. Maybe people are afraid of something that will prove not to be as bad as it seems, but it is something that the average manga artist is scared of right now. And this rolled out. And so let's just keep our eye on this, on this weekly show as we talk about news and stuff. And we'll see if this proves to be an issue for manga, if we somehow see less of it or something. I don't know. It would be nice if they made it a little easier to move to Japan. I will say that. It would be nice. But, no country exactly makes it easy to move there. You either have to have a job offer, in which case, most companies want to be, and the government is motivated to make sure that you are more qualified than the average person that already lives there. So you have to be really exceptional in your field. Or you have to make so much money sort of like doing your own thing that you can afford to live wherever you want, which isn't easy. Like theoretically, for instance, as a YouTuber, if like my channel had 1 million subscribers, maybe I could live where I want. Maybe I could go to France or Sweden or New Zealand or Japan, maybe. but it's not that easy for the average person. Did I grab the new Dan Clowes? I did order it. I think it arrives for me tomorrow. I got a few new comics. I don't really have time to show them off right now, unfortunately, because I really need to eat dinner and keep working on comic tropes. I got issues 2 and 3 of The Sacrificers by Rick Remender. I got a few. There's issue 2, 3. I picked up the Alien Annual because I saw that it had a story illustrated by Danny Earls, an artist, a newer artist that I'm really excited about. He's done some covers for No One. Used to be an Irish professional football player. Now he's really thrown himself into making comics hardcore. He's going places, folks. Sirens of the City by Joanne Sterer and Carrie Randolph. I've been enjoying that book, so that's issue 3. Picked up the new Birds of Prey. You may remember the last time this came out, I was super impressed, especially with the artwork by Romero. Oh, and this one's also written by Joanne Sterer, like Sirens of the City, Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville. What else did I pick up? I've picked up a couple other things. Oh, I picked up some variant American comics when I was in Japan so that I'd have something to read on the plane. I got the latest issue of Thor with a Jan Bazalder cover. It's nice. I got Miss Marvel, the New Mutant #2. I don't know who did that cover. How much was that? That was 780 yen. I'd say that was about $5, honestly. So, like, basically cover price, fortunately. And this interesting variant cover of Ultimate Invasion #4. Yeah, good question. What about Daniel Warren Johnson Transformers? Of course. Yeah, I have several things in my pull list. I haven't been able to go to my comic store and pick up sort of my regular books that are on my pull list, which would include Transformers. But just so you guys know, I saw that one quite a while ago. I do proofreading for Skybound. I know I don't get credited or anything or paid, but I still do get like sent the stuff to look at. So I saw that one a while back. It's great. It's really cool. I'd love to talk more about it. Oh, and I picked up an interesting manga because I need to talk about the best horror of the year. #DRCL is in Dracula. This is by Shinichi Sakamoto, who has really detailed art style. I have terrible lighting for this right now, don't I? Just a really, really detailed art style. Let me try to find an average page or something like that. Anyway, it's an adaptation of Dracula. That'll be fun. Tell you what, before I wrap it up, I wanted to do a list of the best horror comics that came out in 2023, specifically. Anything that you would suggest? I mean, you know, we've got some of the favorites, like Something is Killing the Children. This Dracula book, I'd read some stuff that I think could make my list. What else would I put in there? I'm trying to think. Are there any like webtoons or manga that came out this year? There's probably the new Junji Ito book. That could be in there. Oh, I like Dark Ride. That's through Image. That's a good horror book. I Hate This Place. Yep, I like that. I would call that horror, and I like that a lot. The Left Hand Path is a great sci-fi horror one-shot that came out a couple weeks ago. Okay. I bet that there's some stuff, if I think about it for a minute, James Tynion and Scott Snyder must have each released a couple horror things this year that could make my top 10 list of the year. They each write some good horror stuff. Just trying to think if there's anything I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But thanks for the Kyle Carter and Tit Goblin. Appreciate the the thoughts on some potential books that could make the list. Yeah, I don't know. I got to think about that. But I think I'll do a quick list. I'll be working on editing my video about boy, am I tired. Osamu Tezuka, that I recorded a bunch of stuff in Japan for. Blue Book. Yeah, Blue Book was really good. Yeah, I'll put Blue Book in there. Creep Show. Sergeant Rock versus Army of the Dead was pretty badass. I like that. No, she's not a mutant. Made in the Abyss. I don't think I know Made in the Abyss. I'll have to double check. Asylum Press Vampires, a one-shot reprint of some pre-code vampire comics. Well, that's cool. Oh, World Tree. That would definitely make my list, I think. Yeah. So James Tynan's definitely going to be in there with because he did Blue Book too, right? Yeah, Blue Book and World Tree, I think both would be strong contenders for a top list of horror-related books. Yeah, pre-code horror does rule. You know, I like Ed Piskor on Cartoonist Kayfabe quite a bit. Red Room of what came out in 2023 I was kind of burned out on the premise. I didn't think it ended that strongly. I don't think it would likely make my top 10 of the year. And yeah, I'm just trying to be honest with my opinions. You know, maybe other readers did really enjoy that, in which case I'm glad that it brought them pleasure. I didn't feel it necessarily ended on or gave enough closure to the premise or changed things up enough. So yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't love that in 2023. It's a good suggestion, though. It is definitely its own unique type of horror. And when it first came out, I was like, okay, I feel like I haven't seen anything like this in comics in quite a while. And I stuck with it. I read it all. So we got my money. Hopefully that's good enough. Thank you very much. Nice to be home. Godzilla War for Humanity is going well. Really? I'll give some strong thought to Godzilla because I have read a couple Godzilla things that came out this year. But I don't think I read War for Humanity. Yeah, you know what? You're right. The current Hulk run is horror based, kind of like the Immortal Hulk run, and it's good. That's something to think about. Yeah, I sort of got some of that vibe too. I really liked Ed's stuff when he was doing, telling us the history of hip hop. I thought that there was some real passion behind that. I felt like there was some passion behind his X-Men stuff, even if it was sort of just recapping and didn't necessarily read panel to panel in a thorough way. It was a good way to digest the material. That was a good idea. It was a good idea. Marvel definitely is going to benefit from those that idea of like just condensing everything into like those editions. I really like the stories he did with Harvey Pekar and Wussywig. What you see is what you get. Some computer history. Anyway, love the Hulk. Yeah. No plans to dress up for Halloween, but I am going to hand out candy that night. Anyway, that's helpful. Thanks, guys. The Cradle of Filth comics was really good, and the art was consistently awesome. Good. I've heard that Madness by JMS, and I've also heard Ribbon Queen suggested from AWA. I haven't read either of those. Maybe I'm overlooking things. Appreciate it. That's why I ask. I love recommendations. That's how I found out about Radiant Black, and through there, like a lot of cool stuff about Kyle Higgins. Hope you guys enjoyed the interview at the beginning. Boo, costumes are a must for Halloween. Well, I'm working in the morning and then I'll hand out candy at night. But I don't have time for like a party or anything. And yeah, no real plans. Zorro would be fun to dress up. Yeah, mustache is classy. I'm going to call it a night, guys. This has been a really fun show, though, for me. I had a great time talking about the news, talking with Kyle, and hearing your feedback as well. Thank you so much for everything you guys added to this. Glad that you were able to enjoy. Gonna watch it later. Cool. What are the cats going to be dressed as? No matter what, you can guarantee they won't like it. The interview was great. Kyle seems like a cool guy. I like Kyle a lot. I like Kyle a lot. He's really talented and he's really generous with his time. And I think it speaks to some of his generosity. How I was saying this earlier, he collaborates writing with a lot of people. I think that that's an indicator that he's a good collaborator and that he's good at sharing credit. I think, from what I know of him, he seems like a good guy. Kyle, please don't kill a homeless man on the sidewalk and make me regret saying that. Please, please. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to take off. Good talking to you all. And I will see you Monday, where I will have a recap of New York Comic Con. So that should be a lot of fun. And if any of you watching this see me there, please stop me. I don't necessarily know what you look like. You know what I look like. So if you see me, please, I'm happy to be stopped. I'd love to say thank you for watching. It means a lot to me. That it's nice. Oh, and I'm just in time to ban a chatbot. So ban user and delete their comments. Mission accomplished. Bye. We'll end on that super positive note. Salute time.